going on? What's going on? Of course, just waiting for a couple of people to come in. Give them a few minutes. Yeah, for those that's on, right? For those that's on today, just to give a brief, analogy was what I'm gonna go into today. So we're gonna go into calculating the ARV to a property, adding value to a property, and how to take the equity out of a property. And if you have a house, you can do this with your house too, right? So we'll get into a couple of those things. Just waiting for a couple of people to come in, right? Give them a few more minutes. I know a couple of people are supposed to be coming in that want to get this information personally, so wait for them as well. Right. In the meantime, on Clubhouse, if anybody's there, I'm actually gonna wait for my phone. Let me see. Just share it. Share the room. On Clubhouse, on YouTube is actually unlisted, so you won't see it publicly on YouTube, but you can see it publicly on Clubhouse. So just share. Anybody that's interested, share it to them as well. Okay, we'll be going over a couple of things today. Dealing with real estate, of course. All right, so let's just give people a couple of more minutes. I say like 2 or 3, and then we can get started. Yeah, once again, I'm putting it out there. What I'm going over today is for people that's interested in getting multifamily properties. If you have a single family home as well, you could apply these principles and these rules. If you're looking to take equity out. If you don't know what equity is, we'll get into that as well. You don't know what ARV is, that's part of the lesson. Anything you might not know that's in the title, we're going to go over it in the lesson. Okay, because one of the things I always say is the acronyms is one of the most important things that you should learn and should know what it is. Why? Because when you talk to lenders, when you talk to agents, when you talk to sellers, buyers, et cetera, these are terms they're going to, throw out there. They're going to expect you to know these things, right? So obviously we don't get a full education on these things. We get a glimpse here and there, maybe on YouTube, Instagram, shorts, reels, TikTok or whatever. But nobody really knows the full detail until somebody explains it to them. So, these are terms that would definitely be thrown at you if you're going into real estate, if you're even buying a house, right? Even if you're buying a house, a single family for you and your family, right? They're going to throw these terms at you. And some of these terms you might not know and confuse and might trip you up. And, sometimes you might not ask because they're not there to teach you knowledge, a lesson to a certain extent, right? So you would have to do your own research, your own investigation, of course, just study, right? That's why I'm always going over these lessons. Sometimes you'll see me going over the same things over and over because these are things that you have to know. It ain't even an option, right? So if you're going into this thinking that knowing this is an option, then that's where most people fail at, right? Most people, even those that believe in the Bible, right? We believe in the Bible, right? The Bible says what? If you go into something, not knowing the knowledge, right? You ain't going to be, informed. You're not going to be well informed, right? So stability and knowledge shall be, actually knowledge shall be the stability of our times. We have to know what time we're living in. We have to know what certain things we're getting into. We have to know the knowledge to that as well. And so, these are things that, I love to, share with the people because I feel like you have to know this. right? You should know this, right? Especially if you're talking about generational wealth and, economics and building as a nation. These are things that we need to know, right? The economical part, the things that we're not taught, right? The Bible says, well, we cleave on to those that know the knowledge, right? Where their footsteps out, what I'm saying? You're supposed to be going to them all the time. So that's what I did. That's why a lot of people might say, oh, you got a lot of knowledge and things like that. But to be honest, I just know what I know, and there's so much more to learn, right? So having so much more to learn, I'm only teaching what I know, which can get you in the game and get you, to succeed in a lot of things. But, knowledge is everlasting, right? Just because I know certain things, I didn't tell myself, yo, I'm gonna stop here and that's it. I know everything. I went to more details and extracted even more details on other subjects, right? And through that, I'm able to come here and teach our people. So, shalom to the brother Johanna. I see you just got in. Shalom, shalom to everybody.
Shalom.
Just because I know. Yeah, what's going on, brother? I see you. Yeah, I said I was gonna give brothers a couple of more minutes, so I guess I'll just give them a couple more, maybe one more minute, and we could get started on the subject. Yeah, in the meantime, man, listen, these are things that they actually took out of school. At one point, they used to teach certain economical classes, to a certain extent, but then they took those out to school. So a lot of times, you might have to, go through certain things to even learn certain things, right? Like me, when I got my first property, there was certain things I still didn't know, right? Exactly fully until I got into it. Now I said, am I going to take a risk? Right? Am I going to take a risk? Or am I going to be comfortable and just be like, you know what? Man, I ain't gonna get into that. It's too complicated, right? I decided to take a risk. It was my choice, right? And thank the Most High that the risk wasn't, what you would call it. It didn't cost me, right, a lot. So it might have cost me a little bit, but not too much to the point where I went in there without no knowledge, right? So there's a couple of things, which those are other presentations and other classes I'm gonna do with y'all. The things that I failed at that I needed to learn, right? I don't even call it a failure. I call it a learning lesson. The things that I learned, right? The things that I didn't see in the beginning that I had to learn through experience. These are the things that I like too, because I had to go through it, and I want to prevent other brothers and sisters going into it from going through that. Right. But there's a lot of things I learned, man. You know what I'm saying? From tenants that I had to go back and forth with, right? Being a nice guy, with trying to be a good guy, right? Trying to be a good guy. You know what I'm saying? A good guy sometimes, most of the time, is basically get you burnt. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta take business and the good heart. You gotta separate that. That's different, right? People would take advantage of a good heart. So that's another thing, right? From tenants. But again, of course, I found out the way to just get rid of that whole situation, not even have to deal with it, right? So, I'll be going over those steps, man, from, like I said, from tenants, evictions, from even like screening tenants, how to get Section 8 tenants, how to, go through the process with tenant 8 tenants and seeing what you need, what the process is. These are all things that I learned in the process. I never learned that beforehand. So, thank the Most High. If I was to do a deal again now, I'm going into it full-fledged with the full knowledge, right? The other knowledge is like that I may not have. It's just maybe I don't got the billionaire connect at Hollywood, right? Or other things that they might know, in terms of taxes or certain benefits that an LLC brings or S Corp brings, right? These are, brothers and sisters got knowledge in different topics because that's their topic. That's what they specialize in, right? I specialize in the knowledge that I bring out, right? Going into real estate, getting deals with no money down, how to structure a deal to, go into commercial property as well with no money down, right? How to break down commercial property versus residential properties, single family homes versus multifamily, how to calculate the ARV, seeing that they're both different, right? These are all things that I had to learn on the go. But guess what, man? Y'all got it here. So again, I'm just giving my best to make sure that brothers and sisters that's into investing, right? I always bring out that, in the future, a lot of jobs is going to be replaced by robots. It might be, 10 years from now, it might be 15 years from now. It's definitely going to be in your children's lifetime where there ain't going to be no employment. It's just going to be the rich and the poor. Everybody in the middle ain't going to be no middle class, right? It's going to be either rich or poor, right? So I'm trying to at least make sure that, me and my peoples, right, is at least somewhere around where we could survive at. You know what I mean? Especially in these times. So that's why I bring out these PowerPoint presentations. Again, I always bring out things that a lot of people out there would charge you thousands of dollars for. And when I learned too, right, is that because I used to, I paid maybe once or twice. And what I learned was when sometimes, I'm not saying, don't get it twisted. You know what I'm saying? Not all of them is like this, but sometimes when you pay somebody, they'll give you just enough information until you have to go to them again. Right? So that's another thing, you got to look out for. So I go over all these things, man. All these things. So let's go over this PowerPoint presentation. It's already 12:11, so we can get started. Right? I'm going to share my screen. And again, as I go, if you have questions, bring it out. I'll be answering them at the end of the class. If there's something in the middle where maybe you might not understand, like, what does that mean? Or what exactly is that? You can go ahead and, ask that as well. I'll be reading the comment boards to see what's going on. Zakaria, are you able to pin the YouTube link on top so people in Clubhouse can see the presentation? Oh, Salakia, yeah. Hey, man, listen, I'm just getting. I'm not a Clubhouse expert, man. Salakia, give me 1 second. No problem. I got you on this side. God. All right, y'all modded up now. So, yeah, for those on Clubhouse that want to watch the presentation slides, you go ahead and click the link on the top. Once the brothers Zakaria pins it to the top, right? I'll give them a few, maybe a minute or so, just to have the people, have access to that. In the meantime, I'm going to share my screen over here. Share my screen. All right, and it's also I've recorded on YouTube. Again, it's unlisted now, right? But for certain reasons. But anybody that wants the link, I can give it to you directly on the inbox, right? Because these are PowerPoint presentations that's pre-recorded. Because the reason I record it is I want people to really dive into the lesson, pause when you need it, right? I want you to go into it, mark down notes, mark down questions, anything you might not understand. I want you to really sit there and observe it, right? And really sit here and say, okay, listen, next time this brother has a class, I'm going to ask these questions, right? And that's why I do these PowerPoint live, right? Because I want questions from brothers and sisters if you're confused live so I can answer you, right? But nevertheless, I have it recorded for a reason, so you can go back and take notes and look into it, right? So today's topic is calculating ARV, adding value to a property, and taking equity out, right? A lot of y'all might be saying, a lot of y'all might know what these terms mean, but a lot of y'all might not. So ARV, we're going to get into that, right? Next slide says, what does ARV mean and why should we know what it is? Right, so ARV is an abbreviation for after repair value. As you see, I added the parentheses or renovations because repair is interchangeable with renovations. Right, so anytime you hear renovations, interchangeable with repair. After you hear anytime you hear ARV, that just means after repair or renovation value. Right, so reading on, it says the ARV of a property determines how much value you are adding when you are calculating the numbers. Right, in real estate, one thing you'll learn is numbers talk, BS walks. That's a fact. Right, the numbers got to make sense. You got to be able to calculate certain things. You can get a bad deal by not calculating something. That's how critical these numbers are. Right, you can miss a couple of small steps and then be like, damn, how I end up here? right? So again, these are things you want to know, right? Terms especially you want to know. What's the ARV? When they ask what's going to be the ARV, that means after repair value. So the next thing says what? The appraisal from an appraiser gives you the exact value of the property, and they use a certain calculation process which includes the ARV. So all these calculations, you'll have to have the ARV available to even determine a calculation, right? To determine to see if it's a good deal, to determine to see, if the goal is to sell and profit, or if the goal is to get ahead and take the equity out, you will have to know if you even have equity in it, right? Before the appraisal, right? Because you have to pay for the appraisal. So before the appraiser even comes and you pay for an appraisal, at least you have a number that you can go off of by doing the right calculations, right? The next step says what? If you add value to a property, you want to be able to take equity out if you have any, right? In parentheses, you'll see HELOCs, selling or refinance, cash out are options, right? So these are the options you have if you have a property, a multifamily or a single family household, right? Let's go on to the next slide, right? How to calculate an ARV. That's another important thing. You want to know how to calculate the numbers. Again, calculating the numbers is important. The property, I was told this, by a millionaire, saying I was at one of their conferences or whatever. And one of the things that they said was, listen, you don't fall in love with how the property looks, you fall in love with the numbers. Right? And that's a fact. That's why I'm gonna keep mentioning calculations, numbers, calculations. Even in examples, you'll see that I'm dealing with numbers. Why? Because you have to fall in love with the numbers and not how the property looks. The property could look beautiful, and it could have a negative 5,000 NOI. Just an example, exaggeration, and that means you're losing $5,000 instead of winning or gaining $5,000, right, a month. That's just an example. So no matter how good the property look, you ain't making no money off that property. So you have to be able to calculate these things. So the first point says what? Add up the total purchase price and renovation costs and compare it to 3 to 4 similar type of properties that is fully renovated, right? It has to be, if not exact, it has to be, very, very similar. The only difference that you can maybe slide here and there to square footage, but it can't even be by like hundreds. It has to be like maybe like 10, 20, just something real low, which, it doesn't really say, okay, it's a different type of property or the size is real, is it's crucially different, right? So reading on, it says, and were sold. That's another part. Another component to this is being able to get the properties that were sold, not the ones that's for sale. The one that's for sale, it's not going to give you a comp, right? A comparable sale. That's short for comparable sale. We'll get into that a little later too, right? So, it's not going to give you the comp. What you have to do is look for a property that's sold, that's fully renovated. But again, we'll get into that. The next point, an example is if the fully renovated properties around the one you're looking at sold within the range of $250,000 to $270,000, then your ARV will be between those same numbers. Again, so I'm going to be throwing this term ARV around a lot, right? Because I want to try to get familiar with it. I already gave it a definition. ARV just means the value of the property after it has been renovated or repaired. They're interchangeable. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So on the right, you'll see a picture of a property before and after. Okay, so on one of the points that I wanted to bring out with this property is that before renovations, the value of the property is gonna be less. Obviously, why? Because it's not renovated, right? It looks a little sloppy, looks a little choppy, whatever. You can see the fixture that they did on this property here, for example, right? Before it looked a little messy, like it's all right. Right, to the one to the right, you be like, it looks better, right? Way much better. So a property before renovations and after. So before renovations, I'm gonna use these numbers I'm using right now. Okay, so I'm just showing you how the calculations work in general. So this is not an exact 3-unit. I don't even know what unit this is. I'm just showing you this is before and after picture of a property that I found, but it was in a property that, you know, I was doing the numbers on. I'm just showing you the general calculations of the properties, right? So let's say, for example, this property, right, was a 3-unit, 5-bedroom, 3 bathrooms, 2,000 square footage, right? The purchase price is $150,000. Renovation price is $50,000. The total, right? The total cost for this property, renovations and purchase price included, is $200,000. So now this is the total is $200,000 before renovations. Look at the picture, right? This is before renovations, right? So other properties exactly the same or closest to the same that are renovated, right? So for what? Let's see. For example, so one property sold for $250,000. Property 2 sold for $260,000. Property 3 sold for $255,000. Right now, what are these properties? These are properties that are similar or exactly the same around the same neighborhood as this property. It can't be 3 highways away, right? It can't be 20 miles away. It got to be within the same circumference, within the same neighborhood, right? So these are the numbers you're looking at. These are the kind of properties you're looking for, and this is where you're looking at them, or where you're looking for them. You're looking for them around the same neighborhood in the same area. So these 3 properties, just an example, let's say we found these 3 properties. This is what it's sold for. So now you would say, okay, the one that I have is the same exact one, or very damn near similar to it, very similar, right? It's 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2,000 square footage. All of them is like that. It's just one of them is maybe like 1,800 square feet, right? As you see here, the one we're looking at is 2,000. One of the comparable sales is about 1,800 square feet. That's not too much of a difference. That don't matter. That's what I mean earlier about certain differences. I don't really affect it. But it had 5 bedrooms to 3 bathrooms. That's important, because if it had less bathrooms and less bedrooms, then the value would be less, right? But this is almost the same thing. So these properties, almost the same properties, sold for these prices, right? So what are you looking at here? What are we looking at? In total, what we're going to purchase the property for before renovations would be $200,000. After renovations, the property should be worth anywhere between $250,000 to $260,000. Why? Because the properties around the property you're looking at sold for these prices after being fully renovated, right? And that's why you can't add, if your plan is to sell and profit, right? Sell and flip, buy and flip, as they call it, right? You have to make sure these calculations is on point. So now you could be spending renovation money and not really adding equity or value to it. Because a lot of people may think just because I put some money towards the renovations, I automatically add value. That's not true. Let's say, for example, if the renovation price to this property I'm looking at here changed from $50,000 to $100,000, the total would be what? Right? So $100,000 for renovation price, and $200,000 for purchase price is what? $300,000. So according to the properties that sold around that property, that's the same exact property, being that it only sold for $260,000 max, you can't possibly sell that property for $300,000 because that's not the ARV. All these properties you see here were renovated as well. And that's what the appraiser calculates the calculations off of, what the other properties around it sold for, not how much renovations you put into it or how much money you spent into it. Right, that's important to understand, because a lot of people going into real estate, they say, as soon as I renovate something, it automatically increases in value. That's not true. You have to calculate the numbers to see even what the value is. Right, so that's an example. So let's go on. Right, so now let's say the same example. The total purchase price is $200,000 with renovations being $50,000. and purchase price being 150,000. That's 200,000 total. Now the ARV, let's say, you know, in this game you got to be safe, right? So let's just take, okay, the lowest price, the lowest ARV, the lowest that the other property sold for. The highest is 260,000, but the lowest is 250. You know what? Let's go with the lowest because we don't want to, you know, we want to play it safe, so to say. Right? You want to have a safe strategy. You don't want to go in there, you know, just whatever, right? So 250,000. Now, if your purchase price and renovation in total was 200,000, how much equity do you have in there? You would have $50,000 of equity. Now, what is equity? Equity is just a translation for how much money do you have sitting there in your house. Put it like that. Just imagine a whole bunch of dollar bills, right, sitting there in your house. That's what equity means. How much money do you have sitting there in your house that you could take out? That's all equity means. Right? Get familiar with that term too, because when you go to lenders, and especially if you want to refinance, cash out, sell, whatever the case may be, these are terms you need to know. Right? So again, you have $50,000 of equity, which you can take out. Now, what happens? You go to a lender. You get the best mortgage rate. Remember, the first two videos, I'll go into this, but I'll briefly just touch on it now. So you go to the lenders, you get the best mortgage rates because the lower the mortgage rate, the lower your monthly payments. Right? The lower your mortgage rate, the lower the monthly payments you have to make on that property. And that's what you want to do, especially if you know, what I'm teaching is multifamily. I'm teaching passive income. I'm teaching make money, live rent free, and still have extra on the side. That's what I'm teaching. Single family is not a investment. That's a liability, right? So again, the renovations is important in terms of how much you're spending and how much the value around, you know, other properties, so forth. So if you want to take out the equity, what you would want to do is go to the lender, not only get the best mortgage rates, but you'll have what you would call it. You'll ask them what's your LTV. LTV means loan to value. I'll get into that because that's another slide too. Right? So LTV is loan to value, basically the percentage they're gonna lend you based on the property's value. That's all it is. So now they'll say, okay, we'll give you a LTV of 80% of the property. Now we know the property's worth, let's say, at least 250,000. Right? Now let's say the appraiser comes, you pay for the appraiser, they come through, they give you, they inspect the property, they see the repairs. Okay, cool. They'll go back and calculate what I just did with you guys. They'll go back and calculate these numbers and determine which number they're going to go with. But we know that the lowest number is 250,000. So you can't give me an appraisal of lower than 250 because you can fight that too. That's another thing. You got to learn how to be tough. You got to have tough skin in this game. You got to be able to stand up for certain things. So let's say a appraiser comes and gives you the property value and it says 200,000. When other properties, the same properties as mine, sold for 250. Right? You can fight that appraisal because listen, the one down the block just sold a month ago for 250. And you trying to tell me my joint is worth 200,000? There's something wrong there. You can fight that appraisal and get a new one. Right? You don't got to stick with that appraisal. So let's just say you get the right appraiser. He goes, okay, the property is worth 250,000. Cool. They'll go back to the lender, give them that appraisal, and the lender would tell you they're gonna loan you, right, a total of 75 to 80% of 250,000, right, of the property's value. So that's what they'll do, right? Let's get into the calculator, right? So let's say that again, the property is worth what I said, 250,000, right? So they'll go, okay, how much do you owe on it? So we owe what? According to the calculations, we owe $200,000 on it because we got the renovations and the purchase price together, but we added equity, so we owe less, right? We owe less than what it's worth. So you have to take that $200,000 from the property's value, because that's what you owe the lender that financed the rehab and the purchase price. So that's $50,000 in equity, right? Now the lender would say, I will lend you 75 to 80% of this if you go for a refinance cash out, right? They'll also do that calculation if you go for a HELOC. You can also do this calculation if you already have a house. If we don't know how much equity you have in it, all you gotta do is subtract, right? You have to whatever you owe from the total purchase price. So if you had a lender that loaned you 80%, you would calculate it, as such. So again, in this situation, we have $50,000 here in equity left in the property because you added value to it, because your new value to the property after renovations, the appraiser said it was worth $250,000, right? So now they'll say, okay, let's say a lender says we can lend you up to 80% of this in the refinance cash out. Refinance cash out, I touched on that in the first two videos, but to briefly go over it again, you're just going for a new loan, a new mortgage, and they're giving you the equity in the check, which is tax free. So they're giving you the equity in the check, but you could cash out, do whatever you want with it. Of course, I would say invest it, more assets, right? But that's what they do. Or you can HELOC it. It'll be a separate payment, but they'll just give it to you in the credit card form. That's the only difference. And HELOCs is more flexible, which I'll get into a little later. HELOCs are more flexible. Refinance cash out, that require just a little bit more. So let's say they give you 80% of 50,000. How do you calculate it? How do you calculate that? 50,000 times 80%. So you're getting $40,000 in equity, right? In a check. If you refinance cash out or if you sell it, that's what you're getting. You could refinance cash out and hold the property and put a tenant in there, and now you're getting passive income at the same time taking out the equity. It's up to you. That's what I'm saying. Everything is based on your goal. Do you want to have passive income? Do you want to buy and flip and just make a quick profit? What do you want to do? That's very important, but you should know whatever your goal is, you should know how to do it. That's the very important part. So now you have $40,000 that you could take out tax-free. The option is yours how you want to do it, but the option of taking it out is there. That's how you add value to a property and take the equity out of it. Right? Now let's go on the contrary. Let's see how the numbers won't make sense. Let's go into the same calculator. Right? The property's worth $250,000. Right? That's after renovations. Let's take the same example of the property that's not renovated. You're looking at this property, it's not renovated yet. They're selling it to you, let's say, for $250,000. Now you go in there thinking, if I add a little renovation, the property value will go up. But you don't know, hold up, the ARV after repair value is $250,000. They're selling it to you for $250,000. Even if you put renovations, you ain't putting no equity in there because you capped out. The ARV after repair value for any property like this is $250,000. Y'all get me now? I hope y'all understanding me. That's how the game works. That's how the calculation works. It's not how much money you put into the property. Now, let's say they selling you a property for $250,000 and the ARV is $250,000. I don't care how much money you put in there. You have no equity. But it depends on your goal. If you're going in there for passive income, let's say this property is generating good monthly income. This joint is about 5 G's a month. NOI, profit. That's after expenses. Then, listen, you going in there with no money down anyway. You do the first-time homebound program. The first-time homebound program got the down payment assistance program. You ain't got to put 3.5% down no more. And then they also attach the renovation programs if you want that option with it. So guess what? You're going into the deal with no money down, but the passive income is 5 G's a month NOI. That's a good deal, of course. Because your goal is not to go in there to take out the equity. Your goal in there is just to use no money out your pocket just to get passive income. That's it. Within time, and that's called buying and holding. You're going to buy property long term to give you that monthly income. And what happens is within time, anyway, the value of the property goes up. So you could take equity out in the future anyway because it's going to go up in value. That's if your goal is long term holding and if the property is producing enough income to even consider it a good deal. I wouldn't take it if it's $1,000 I'm going into it because I could get a better deal. You see that? Right. So also that's another thing I go into the first two videos. You want to know how much money the property is generating. If it's empty, right? Let's say you get a property that's empty, you go on something like called rental meter, right? You Google it, rental meter. You go on rental meter, you search up the location in the state and the town, and they'll give you actually you search up the address and they'll give you the monthly rent for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, whatever it's going for, right? Market value, market rent value. So they'll get, you won't have to be like, damn, how much does a 1 bedroom go for? I'm trying to rent this out, right? You ain't charging $500 when it's really worth $1,500. Now you shortchanging yourself, right? These are little things you want to know. So, which is other things I'm going to get into the future as well, right? So again, with this property, you're adding equity only if you do the ARV and the calculations as I specified. Okay, so let's go on to what it says down here. Okay, it says to get an exact number of the value of your property after renovations, you will have to get it appraised by an appraiser, and these are the numbers they will have to look at to determine the value. All the calculations I just did right now, that's what an appraiser does to determine the calculation of the value of the property. Right, reading on, it says, if you have the knowledge of calculating the ARV yourself, that is key to knowing if you have the equity to take out or not. This calculation is key to know and needed with the goal of selling for profit, refinance, cash out, or HELOCs. So either way, you still want to know these calculations because at the end of the day, you want to know what you're doing. Right? You don't want to leave it to the next person, the lender, to do calculations for you because more than likely, listen, something could be off. I don't give a damn $5,000, $10,000. That's a lot of money. Something could be off by a couple of thousands, and you want to make sure your numbers, right? And that's what it's all about, knowing and investigating and doing your own research and knowing this information. That's the crucial part. Everything else is easy. The looking for a property, the going to the agent and going with an inspection. That's all easy. At least to some that already know. Those that don't know, of course, I had a step-by-step program in the last two videos I mentioned I'm going to do in the future, right? But that's the easy part, right? What you got to acquire is the knowledge. That's the most important part. I'm always stress that. Okay, so we're going to the next slide. As a matter of fact, let's look at some more renovation pictures, right? Just so you get familiar with a distressed property looks like. That's another term, right? They call it distressed properties or value add properties, right? Distressed properties are properties that need rehab or renovations. Okay, value add properties is another way of saying this property need renovations. But you see how those two terms can totally mean something different if you don't know what it's talking about. You'll be like, what is that? And they both mean the same thing. It's just fancy words they'll throw around. If you're not familiar with it, you're stuck. And that's why it's important. Okay, so this is a picture here of a before and after a property inside. Right, and as you see, the one that's after is obviously more renovated and more nicer and updated than the one that's before. And that's how you add value to the property if you do the numbers right. That's why in the first video, I also say what you want to, when you go see the property pre-inspection, when you go see the property, when the agent tells you to say, okay, let's schedule a date to see the property, you go see the property and you look at these things. And you do the numbers and see if you can add value by using the renovation loan included in the program. And if you can add value, guess what? You can add equity to the property. See that? Let's go to another picture. Right, as you see, before and after. right? They updated it, made it a little more fancier, nice looking, right? Another example of an internal rehab before and after. You see, before it's a little, and some see when you get used to the appliances and certain things in the house and the property to be able to dictate and kind of off site say, okay, these looks kind of old. This style is kind of old looking, right? Look at the one on top. It's decent. It looks nice. It's like, listen, it's livable. I'm living there. I don't give a damn, right? You know, me personally, listen, it looks clean, right? But the bottom one looks a little more updated, a little more fancy, a little more, you know, welcoming to the people, right? And that's what it's all about, the eyesight. So it's valued more. It's updated. If you see the appliances, everything is updated. And on the one on top, everything seems outdated. Like it's old, it's clean, but it's old, right? Same thing here, right? That's the property outside before, and that's the property outside after. So that's how you add value to the property, right? You can go more pictures and all that. You know what I'm saying? You could Google after and before renovation pictures, right? But that's what I'm talking about when you add value to the property, when you take it from one state and put it in another estate, which is a better updated estate. I hope everybody understanding that, right? So let's go to the next slide. So as you see at the bottom, I'm giving different ways to pull the equity out. It says for a HELOC, the same principles of calculations apply for the value and equity except for the payment plan and mortgage in place. A HELOC is given in the form of a credit card, which if used will be paid back in payments separate from your mortgage on the terms of the lender. So if you have a mortgage already in the property, you take the equity out on a HELOC, you don't get a new mortgage. You get a separate payment because a HELOC acts, right, as a credit card. They give you a credit card with the equity in it. And then let's say if you use a certain amount according to the calculations, okay, you have to pay $50 a month or $100 a month on that, right? Depending on what you use. But that's how a HELOC is. That's how a HELOC works, right? A refinance cash out, which I'll get on to the next slide with that. A refinance cash out is a new mortgage. It's not a separate mortgage from the one you have. It's a new mortgage on your property, and they're giving that equity to you on the check form. They could cash out in the bank, right? Tax free. But they'll have a little more requirements, like your credit got to be all right because there's a new mortgage now, right? Your credit got to be all right, right? Your income, not so much if it's a multifamily. If it's a single family, then you got to have an income. See what I'm saying? So, but a HELOC is way more flexible than a refinance cash out because they don't require a lot of things, especially the paperwork. They don't require as much paperwork as a refinance cash out, and the HELOC is 1, 2, 3. Refinance is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In other words, right? So, reading on, it says it is usually very affordable and for sure more flexible than a refinance cash out in terms of paperwork. They also go higher in loan to LTV, loan to value, which means what? A lot of lenders, most lenders, what they'll lend you is 75 to 80% of the property's value. That's what they'll give you, right? When you're taking out your equity. But a HELOC will give you, a lot of lenders will give you 85 to 90% of that equity, which again, they'll give it to you in the form of a credit card, right? Reading on, it says all LTV means if what they are loaning you according to the value. That's all it is. Loan to value. I'm going to lend you this based on the value of the property. That's all it is. I'm going to lend you this percentage, this much, whatever, 80, 85%, whatever the case may be, 90%, according to the value of the property. And of course, you deduct the value, you deduct how much you owe from the value of the property to see if you even have any equity in there. And that should give you the exact calculation how much equity you got in there. And that number, you times it by whatever percentage the lender gives you. And that'll give you the exact number of what you're taking out. I mean, I went over it, so I mean, y'all can go back. If you have any questions, again, at the end of the class, which I'll be wrapping up shortly, about 1 o'clock, maybe a little before, y'all can go ahead on mic. Even on Clubhouse, if you have questions, y'all can come up, ask the questions, and we can answer them. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. So for a refinance cash out, as you see at the bottom on YouTube, For refinance cash out, the lender will give you a new mortgage rate and loan you up to 75 to 80% of the property's value, which I already went over. They will give you a check which you cash out tax-free, and you are paying it back through the mortgage in place with your tenants is paying. So let's say you have a multifamily and you take the equity out in the refinance cash out. First of all, you want to make sure that the mortgage rate is a better mortgage rate, because you don't want to be paying more monthly. If it's going to dig too much into your pocket, you don't want to do that, right? So if you're paying, let's say, $1,000 a month and a new mortgage rate is being offered to you, you should be paying less than $1,000 this time, because it got to be a better mortgage rate. But let's say, you want to take out your equity, but now from $1,000 you have to pay $1,200. But the property is bringing in enough money to cover that anyway and still leave you a profit. Those are the numbers you want to calculate to make sure to see if it's worth it or not. See what I'm saying? So even with a multifamily, what are you doing? You're letting your tenants pay your rent. You're letting your tenants pay your mortgage. Why? Because it's through the calculations. Go back to the calculator, right? Everything is a calculator. Got to calculate everything, right? So let's say the property is bringing in, for example, let's say $3,000. Your mortgage is $1,500, right? That means that after expenses, your NOI, or net operating income, in other words, after your gross, or in your job terms, you would say after taxes, right? From that property and profit, you're making $1,500 a month, right? So let's say you refinance cash out to get the equity out. But, the market's a little shaky right now. The mortgage rate's a little shaky, like, you know what I'm saying? They're going up a little bit, like it's been the last couple of times, right, recently. But let's say now, okay, instead of paying $1,000 a month, now you have to pay $1,200 a month. I mean, my bad. My math was off on that one. If you're bringing in $3,000 a month from that property and your mortgage on that property is $1,500, you're left with $1,500. But now if you have to pay $1,700, right, which is $200 more a month, all you gotta do is subtract 15 minus 200, right? 1,500 minus 200. Now instead of, now you're making right? Now you're making 1,100, right? Instead of wait, did I do that? Let me do that over. You're bringing in $3,000 a month. The mortgage is $1,500, right? Now you have $1,500 in profit. Now let's say your mortgage is now, $1,700, right? Now your mortgage is $1,700, right? All you're doing is subtracting the $200. So now instead of $1,500, you're making what? $1,300. So with $1,300, you would say, okay, it's not affecting me as much. I want to take the equity out, so it's not really affecting me. This is $200 extra. I'm still making $1,300, right? Then you would say, okay, it's worth it. It's not even a dent, right? It's not really too much. Now let's say if you're making $1,500 a month, you refinance cash out, and they offer you a mortgage rate of $1,300 a month, right? Now you went down profit to $200. That's not worth it. You're like, hell no, I'm gonna keep the same mortgage and wait till the interest rate get better then, right? You wait till the interest rate get better to take the equity out, because now you only receiving what? $200 a month instead of the $1,500 you originally started with. That's not worth it. So knowing these calculations again would let you know if you should even refinance cash out. Again, HELOC is a little different, but we just talking about the refinance cash out now, right? Because a HELOC, that's a separate payment. It's not getting a new mortgage like a refinance is. A refinance is giving you a new mortgage. So again, if the new mortgage is only leaving you with $200 a month, it's not worth it. Wait till the interest rate go down. And that's why I say when we invest, or when I teach to invest, I teach to invest in long-term properties, because what happens is if you invest in properties to keep it long-term, you won't have to worry about the market crash and none of that, because it ain't going to affect you. You're not setting it to profit. Right? If you're selling it to profit, that means you're selling it at the current value. If the value of the properties go down and your goal is to sell it, then obviously it's going to affect you, because now your profit goes down and the value goes down. But if you're keeping it long term for 10, 15, 20 years because it's making profit good income and the rent goes up every year, you increase the rent, still making good income, and you increase the rent, and now you're making more income. Guess what? If that's your goal to keep it long term, you don't have to worry about the market crashes because you're not taking the equity out anyway. That's not your goal right now. So you wait that off, and you don't have to worry about that, right? So that's an example. Let me clear this. Store this. Go back to the slides. So that's what refinance cash out is, right? That's an explanation of what the process is and what you're looking at when you're dealing with a refinance cash out, right? So what's the next slide? Okay, it says on the bottom, if you plan to sell for profit, the same principles of calculations apply, except you will need an agent to advertise and help you sell the property, right? So the agent can get you on the list where it's advertised to way more people probably than you can reach at the moment. Let's say if you got a big market, then hey, listen, you could market it yourself, but the agent usually helps with the marketing and the selling, right? So if you plan to sell for profit, then you would add an agent unless you're doing it yourself, right? I put in parentheses, unless you do it on your own. Doing it on your own means you know how to market, you know what to require, you know how to go about it, you know what to ask of the buyer, you know how to get financed, right? You know how to, all of that. You know what the earnest money deposit is, right? Because you got to ask them for an earnest money deposit to lock down the property. Then you got to get their pre-approval letter, right, from the lender that they're going to buy the property with, because you're going to be financed by their lender, unless it's a cash deal where they just give you straight up cash. But nowadays they don't even do that because they use OPM, which is other people's money. That's how real estate investors do it now, right? So unless you know how to, again, know what to ask for, you have to make sure the lender is not only approving them, but make sure that you're going to get the funding from the lender. You got to have a direct contact with the lender, right? An agent does all of that for you. That's what the benefit of an agent is. He does all that for you. And if you're going to do it yourself, then you have to go through all those steps, right? But you can do it. I'm not saying nobody could do it. Me personally, sometimes I don't want to do that. So I'd just rather have an agent, and he take a percentage, and I'm still getting the profit. I'm good. Or sometimes I might say, yo, listen, I don't got nothing to do right now. Let me just do it myself, right? It's kind of fun. Right, it's kind of fun sometimes when you dip and dab into these things and you just doing it yourself because it's like, yo, you know the game. But sometimes you'd rather just sit back, chill, right, relax, and say, let somebody else do it, man. Right? So let's go on to the next slide. So on the bottom, depending on the flexibility of your state's FHA program, which is the first-time home buying program, you can use to go into getting a property or 1 to 4 unit with no money down. Again, I'm going to explain too that a 5 unit and above is commercial properties, different rules and regulations to that, especially when it comes to the ARV. ARV for a 1 to 4 unit is calculated differently than a 5 unit and above. 5 unit, 4 unit, 3 unit means apartments. That's all it means. So 1 to 4 units or apartments is differently calculated than the 5 units or 5 apartments and above, which is considered commercial property. But I'll get into that because the commercial property thing is a whole nother PowerPoint itself, right? But I want brothers to get a basic understanding of how to, do calculations, how to calculate equity, how to do this, right? Loan to value, what the lenders may be asking from you. The first 2 videos, I'll go into deeper details about the lenders and the questions you may need to ask them and what information you need from them to calculate everything to see if it makes sense. That's why, matter of fact, I'm gonna put it in the chat as well, Clubhouse. If y'all see my first 2 videos, right? Hey, Zakar, you able to put up the link, the 2 links for the classes?
Yeah, where you want me to put it at?
Right, you can put it in Clubhouse. Yeah, the first 2 classes, the first 2 lessons I did, right? How to get started in real estate and step-by-step guide. Right, you can put that on the club link, on Clubhouse link in the chat. Right, the water can appreciate it. So you go back and look at those videos, and I go into deeper details on these things, right? So, yeah, so it's different rules and regulations once you jump to the 5 units and above. It's different rules and regulations, and so the FHA program are the programs you have to look for in your local state, right? Locally in your state, you have to look for these programs, right? And then you ask them certain questions, what in terms of what they offer and how you get qualified. But the qualifications are really easy. It's not really too much, right? So Again, depending on the flexibility of your state's FHA program, which includes renovations loans, you can add value to a property and pocket the equity with $0 out of pocket, right? It ain't no scam. Right? Because when I first heard this, like before I even knew about real estate, yeah, you could get these $100,000 properties for no money out of pocket. I should like, man, get out my face with that, man. These niggas is bugging. Right? That's what I first thought. But when I really got deep into the game and I really realized, hold up, it's real. You just have to know the knowledge. You have to know how to go about it. That's when it changed for me. That's when I say, you know what? Okay, I got to get into this and see what they're talking about. I see a lot of people do it. I seen some people that I knew, not personally, but what's good? How you doing? Type stuff, right? That I've seen in person before. I've seen them get into it and do it too. So I'm like, damn, they doing it. You know what? I guess I can get into this knowledge and do it too. So again, we're here, and then I'm letting you know, yes, it's possible, right? Even if you own a home, if you own the home for at least 3 years, maybe sometimes some programs only require 1 year. If you lived in your primary home, I'm talking about a single family house, you can still get into multifamily investing and use these programs because you're still considered a first-time home buyer after 1 to 3 years of owning the property, right? So I don't want you to think that, oh, I got a house now, so I might not qualify. That's not true. A lot of these programs is flexible, and they're getting more flexible. You know what? A lot of times, what happens is, see, the government is not doing the funding on the they're not doing the labor, should I say, in the real estate thing or whatever. Like if you're getting a property, they're there to say, yo, we're funded, but we're not doing none of the labor. You deal with that, right? And the labor, I just mean, make sure you check on your property, make sure the garbage is all over the place. You have somebody maybe or yourself maybe cleaning up once in a while, whatever. Things of that nature. The government ain't going to do that. They just there to fund it, right? So it's important to know which program you're going with and what options they have and what you qualify for. That's the first important thing, right? And then you can take these steps and add the value and do whatever your goal is. You can do it. You just got to know what you're doing, right? So let's go on to the next slide. In fact, that was all the slides right there. So yeah, my bad. I'm concluding right now. I'm concluding, and I'm taking questions if anybody has any questions. Right. So if you're on Clubhouse, you can come up, ask the question if you have any. If you're on, YouTube in the comment boards, Johanna as well on the panel, that can ask questions. I'm gonna go through the comments right now to see if anybody has any questions. Right. Right. So if anybody have any questions, you could put it in the chat. Or on the YouTube comments, you can put, the questions as well. And we can get it answered for you. Right. I'm just looking at the chat to see if there's any questions. And Zakar, if you see any questions too, just let me know. Maybe if I miss it, just in case. Right. But yeah, man, I'm taking questions. Anything really, that you may have a question about, I'm taking, regarding anything that I taught today. You might have seen the first 2 videos, right? The first 2 videos, you might have seen it. So if you have any questions from those 2, you can go ahead and unmute. What's good, King? Did you say something, Carter?
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, my bad. All right, so it must have been the background noise over here.
I'm waiting for people to raise their hands on Clubhouse, so I'll bring them up and they can ask their questions.
Come on, got you. Okay, so we have one in the chat. So it says when getting income property, it's important to ensure to have emergency funds for repair. Now that's true. However, what I teach too is to take advantage of the renovation loans that the programs have, because what happens is, I explained it also in my first 2 videos, right? Once you renovate a property, you basically making it brand new. All the appliances, the pipes, the electrical system, the HVAC system, the roofing, if it's not too messed up, if it has, lifespan of more than 15 years, right? Once you renovate a property brand new, you don't have to worry about renovations for at least 20 plus years for most things, right? Little things here and there, like a clog or something that a tenant might have. Okay, you might have to do certain things like that. But for the most part, once you go into a property, renovating it, the property is basically brand new, so you don't have to worry about repairs or anything of that nature for a real long time. And on top of that, not only is your mortgage being paid by the tenants, you're also having extra money on the side that I hope, people will be saving up, right? And you have a job on top of that, which everything you work for, that's savings. That's, you got that in your pocket. That's savings or investments, right? So you're not really paying no mortgage or anything like that besides maybe gas, water, and electric, or that's about it. But other than that, even with that, your expenses are being paid because you're still making a profit off the property. So with the repairs, I would say that's when the inspection comes in and the pre-inspection observation. You go in there seeing if it does need repairs, so you could use that system, or you could use that renovation loan that's attached with the program, right? Because you can take advantage and just make everything brand new. And the property value goes up if you calculate it and you added equity to it. So that's important to know. So yeah, it is important to have money for repairs, but going in, you want to make sure that everything is already having a long lifespan. You're not going in there saying, well, the pipes has 3 years and we're going to leave like that, right? Now you're going to have to get the renovation loan and fix it. Depending on the deal, if it's a good deal, generating good income, right? Um, so let's see what else we have. So it says, don't you have to apply for the loan grant first before looking at the property? The first thing you have to do is see in your state, you have to, look up and research a list of lenders first, FHA programs that will give you the funding first. See what their qualifications, their rules and regulations are, which what I'll go over is the general things that they offer. But some programs differ in small things here and there. So you want to get a list of lenders, multiple, not just one, right? Not just two. You want to get all the lenders if possible in your area. Ask them what their qualifications are. What are their down payment assistance programs offers, right? Because a lot of them, like I said, a lot of them offer DPAs. So you want to go with one that offers a down payment assistance program. That way you don't have to come out of pocket to pay the down payment, right? And that's also along with the grant. If you want a grant or that down payment, then you have to go to the programs and ask them exactly what they offer, and they'll tell you exactly what it is that they offer. Right. That's that. All right. Taking the question as he going over the two. Yeah, so the 203K also, from what I know, has more flexibilities, right? Especially for newcomers, you have more flexibilities, and there's a program, designed more towards, being flexible in terms of the buyer side, right? Because when you're going into real estate, you're on the buyer side. So yeah, it's different program. That's why you would also have to ask them, right? Anybody that wants to see what that's about as well, you would have to call a 203K loan program and ask them specifically about their program and their requirements and qualifications, right? So it's all about comparing apples to apples. Whatever works for you, whatever you're trying to apply, or whatever your goal is, see what program best fit your goal to see which one you're going with, right? So your mortgage rate shopping, and you're also shopping for good lenders, right?
It's just a question,
Yeah, what's up?
Family. So my question is it better to invest into a single family home or into a double as a first time home buyer?
So me personally, what I teach is, investing in a multifamily first because it's more beneficial. What I like to do usually is give the advice to people to say, okay, increase your passive income and let your passive income pay for your future house. It's because you can use the same first-time home buying programs that you use for multifamily in the future to buy your primary house, your single family. So I would say, me personally, it's better to invest in the multifamily, get the passive income, increase your passive income, each month. And when you get to a certain level where your expenses is already paid for with 2 or 3 properties, and you say, okay, these other properties is basically profit, right? And then you could go ahead and use the same programs to get your primary house. So that's what I would suggest.
Okay, and I just have one more question. How do you feel about investing into lots that don't have any property on them?
So with lots, it's kind of different depending on what kind of project you want to do with it, because it's different. Certain rules and regulations is different for, let's say, a property itself and a lot itself. So unless you have to see what kind of zone it is, what's your goal, what are you planning to do with the lot. Let's say if you want to build a 5-unit apartment building or whatever, you would have to also see the rules and regulations if that area allows a 5-unit, right? So you will have to do a lot of research and homework on what specifically you're trying to do with the lot.
Okay,
no doubt.
Can I ask something, McGrath?
Yes, sir.
So, as far as the multifamily too, compared to the single family, as being a consultant and a business advisor, I look at it like this, right? So, if you got a multifamily, let's say you got 4 units, right, and you got a single family, and you got 4 single families. So, say like 2 rules get broken or something get happen, you got to repair 2 rules, right? That's 2 rules because those are single family. Now, if you have all 4 units under one roof, when that roof breaks, that's only one roof you gotta fix. So, kind of compare it like that when you're looking at it in the aspect of making money. On our land right there.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And that goes the same thing like with the water heaters, the boilers. You don't have multiple things that can break down eventually that you would have to fix, even though you from the get you're making sure these things are brand new, either through a renovation or through the inspection, right? But you want to make sure that again you it's less boilers for you, right? You're making a passive income. It's more beneficial for you, and it's less repairs as well. So good point, Jakaya. Yeah, I see Mike Mills on stage.
Yeah, Mike got a question, I believe. Well, he got a statement.
Yeah, Mike. Bring it out.
Shalom. Yeah, I was what I meant by the 203, which I see a lot of people like overlook, is as far as what the 203K does specifically for people like our people who like don't have people who can nurture them through a flip or purchasing their first property. Just say like Nakia just asked about the multifamily, and I just did this with my sister, which she bought a first property, and instead of buying a single family, she bought a 4-unit, which gave her 3 rental properties. 2 rental properties as far as apartments. One big loft that her and her 2 daughters stay in, and then she has a storefront. But because she used the 203K program, what that does is it gave her the money to flip the property also. But the unique thing that people overlook with the 203K is that with the 203K, you get a rep from the bank that they send out, that they partition the money out to the contractors. Because most people who do a flip or renovation actually don't have the experience to do it. So this rep comes out and sees, okay, the rough ends are done. We can pay him this much out of the whatever the allotment is for your 203K, whatever your renovation total is. They'll allot that amount for the progress that's done. That way you don't get to spending all of the money for the flip, and in the end you still short, but you don't overspent the money. Like that's the biggest part of the 203K that a lot of people overlook, that you get that representative that actually acts as a contractor for you. Like he oversees the contractors and the dispersion of the money. So it guarantees that when that money is gone, that the whole project is done. So I recommend that to anybody that's buying their first property. Please don't go just get a single family, because you can. That is like the biggest thing that, as far as wealth creation in our community, we don't take advantage of it. And it's like the quickest way to set up a great nest egg for yourself is getting into a multi-family. So I just wanted to drop that Joe.
Yeah, we appreciate that, brother. That's a fact right there, man. If you actually listening, mark that down in your notes. You see the brother gave a real detailed answer, an informative answer, or he made a statement that can help a lot of people. So that's what we do, right? We want to put information out there that our people can take advantage of. You know what I mean? These programs, they offer certain things. You see other people doing it, right? Congrats to your fam, right, for stepping up and to the plate and hitting that home run with that 4 unit. You know what I'm saying? That's what it's all about. When it comes to generational wealth, you want to have that passive income to the point where, listen, you guys have to think about it like this too, right? We're all going to come to an age where we're not going to be able to physically do certain things. That means our options for jobs will be limited, very limited, right? Especially these, unemployment going up, right? So if you have assets, everybody needs a place to live. Everybody needs an apartment. I don't know nobody on the planet they don't need a place to live. They're looking for apartments. A lot of these people, they losing their houses because they can't pay the mortgage. That's why I don't suggest starting with a single family, because a lot of these people, they losing their single family for not being able to pay the mortgage. And then they're forced to do what? Move into an apartment, right? So if you have apartments, units that are occupied, bringing in that income, and then you stack up the units each year with the same programs with nothing out your pocket, that's the best opportunity you can have, right? All you gotta do is get the knowledge and apply it, right? And again, I'll be helping those who specifically want to be helped, right? That want to get into this. I'm gonna also gather brothers that's and sisters that's well, versed in this knowledge in this field, get them together, and we can make, classes and clubhouse rooms together as well, because some information I might not know, they might know. Some information they might not know, I might not know, vice versa, right? So we all teach each other, right? We don't all have, none of us have the complete package where we can say we know everything. We always learn from one another, as long as it makes sense, right? And it's accurate. So yeah, let me see the YouTube. I know it's a couple of joints. Let me see. So your advice is paying down on the principal for a long-term property to pay off the loan faster. I mean, I would say that me personally, so for people in Clubhouse, they're asking is a good advice basically paying down on the principal for a long-term property to pay the loan off faster. If you pay off the loan faster, it's cool. That's cool, because guess what? Now you don't have to make a mortgage payment, and you don't, and now everything is just straight profit, right? That's the benefit about it, right? But one thing about it too is that you have all that equity sitting there. Like I brought out earlier, it's just like hundreds of $1,000s literally just sitting in your house doing nothing, right? That's after you pay the property off. Eventually, you're gonna want to tap into that equity and use that to get more assets. Or you might have an emergency, you might have whatever, but the equity's still in there. So it's really up to you. It depends. Like if you don't really want to take out the equity, you want to leave that in there. That's cool. That's cool too. Me personally, I like to take the equity out because I can do other things with that. You see, I can fall back and kind of see what I want to do. Like I don't do it right away, but I know I have the option to do it. So me personally, I would say it's up to you what you want to do. Again, they both have benefits. You know what I mean? Me personally, I'll take that equity out, get a new mortgage, which will probably be a low mortgage rate, right? I'm looking for the best mortgage rate, and then just let the tenants pay it off again, and just keep doing it all over again. So that's what I'll do. Another question was asked, would you advise making payments on the principal? Okay, I just answered that. So that's the same question, right? Another question said, when does your class start in March, and will it be virtual? So right now at the moment, what I'm doing is these classes, I'm doing it because I want y'all to, this is information that y'all can go back, pause the video, and I need y'all to really digest it because it's information that you need going into the game. Now the step-by-step, right? I'm doing a step-by-step program, which I'm going to be there step-by-step with you, calling the lenders, doing the numbers with you, doing everything with you step by step, right? That's maybe like a little after April 1st, right? So after April 1st, I'll be doing that. And it's all about learning exactly what you need to be knowing going into these deals, right? So right now, again, I'm just going general information that you need to know. I always recommend go back to the videos. Any questions you may have or something you don't understand, always write it down and ask me, because I'll be having these classes most of the time Sundays at 12 p.m. Right? So That's the answer with that. Will it be virtual? No, it'll be an individual thing because again, I'll have to talk with you directly, and then we'll have to call lenders in your state, and then they'll want your information, like how much money you're making, what's your name, things of that nature, private things. So that's something me and you would do privately, or me and anybody would do privately if they're doing the program with me, right? So that's something separate. But the general classes of things you need to know, I'm doing that on the YouTube and on the Clubhouse, right? Just to extend that answer. So let me see. And everything, right. Yep. Capitalize on everything. That's right, man. Take advantage of it, right? Even the scriptures tell you, man, don't use the world, don't abuse it, right? Don't go out now, stop keeping the commandments because you over here getting money and all that, right? And getting properties and knowing this, knowing that, right? But hey, use it to your advantage. Listen, a lot of times, guess what? Our people not only not taught this, right? But generational wealth, a lot of times in our community don't continue because we don't have the knowledge to do it. We don't know how to do it. So with this, imagine you're able to learn this information. You're able to acquire properties, and then you're able to show others who really love you and you love them, and they're genuine, and they want to say, listen, I'm going to change my life, and you know how to do these things and be able to provide this information for them. That'll change anybody's life. Right. And that'll change your kids' life because now, guess what? In the future, they'll have assets that'll be passed down to them once you're gone. So we're not just thinking about us at the moment. We're not just thinking about, yo, get this money right now. We're thinking about, yo, what are my kids going to have? What am I going to pass down to my kids? Whatever I taught people that's out there that was struggling just like me when I didn't know none of this stuff, when I was poor, when I didn't know any other options to make money, when I wanted to know about financial literacy, where can I go? Right? I was in that situation. I didn't know nowhere to go. I had nowhere to go. So we want to be the people to go to and be able to, have the answers and say, listen, this is where you could go. This is what you could do. And if you're really about it, then you're going to do it. Right? So that's the importance, man. We don't only think about ourselves. We think about our kids, our families. We think about those around us that don't even know this information. A lot of our grandmothers, our grandfathers, right? They end up homeless, nursing homes. Why? Because the government is going past them with the technology, right? They're not taught about opportunities themselves. The old school way is not working in the new age, right? Back then, my father, God rest his soul, he said what? Back in the days, his rent was, I believe, was like $100 a month back in New York, right? This is a while back. If you was making $12 an hour back in the days, listen, you made it. You made it. Right, everybody wanted to be like you if you had a job that paid at least $12 an hour. Like, damn, I gotta get up there, man. I need that $12 an hour job, right? Now, $12 an hour you can't even live off of that, right? You can't even live off $12 an hour right now. Let's keep it real, right? I think minimum wage is $15 now. That's how bad it's got. That minimum wage had to be raised up. Right, so we want to be able to teach this to ourselves, to our kids, and be able to have something in place in case we do lose our jobs. Right, in case we do have emergency situations. Listen, all of us, we can't dictate what happens in life. You might get sick, you might get hit by a car, anything can happen. Now you're in the hospital recovering, but now your job don't allow you no days off. If you miss 3 days, I don't give a damn. You got a broken leg, you're getting fired. That's how they thinking. They ain't give a damn. They thinking, listen, my money ain't being made. You're not being a servant to me right now. I don't give a damn about your hospital situation. You don't want to be in that situation. And we can avoid it if we can all just get our minds together and really formulate this, economic stuff in our life, along with keeping the commandments of the Most High. Right? So I'm taking more questions. I'll be on here maybe 10 more minutes, depending. Right? Listen, man, another thing that's important, right? While I'll wait for the questions to arise in the chats. But another thing to remember, brothers and sisters, is, confidence, right? Confidence, especially when you know the knowledge. It's confidence. It's not hesitating. It's not, damn, yo, you know what? I can't do it, right? A lot of times that negative mindset is what keeps our people back. I got to be real. Or I can't do it. I'll leave that for later. Or this and that, right? Missing opportunities left and right. A lot of times our people doubt, That's one of the curses. Our people should hang in doubt. A lot of times we don't even consider ourselves good enough to know this information or to follow through with these steps. Now that's rich people stuff. What? Right? Just like when they say if you talk educated or if you got a good vocabulary, you know how to articulate yourself, they say you're talking white. Right? Everything when it comes to us is frowned upon when it comes to intelligence, when it comes to acquiring knowledge. We want to break that, man. We want to break that chain. We want to be able to say, nah, man, listen, I got this. I am going to do this. I'm going to put my mind to this. Right? As much as you hate going to your jobs and working, you hate going to that job, looking at that manager's face, right? This other mean person or person, bitter person, you got to see every day of your life because you're working. Right, but you still go, you still put up with that. It's the same thing with life, man. Don't go in doubt and just I'm not ready to go through the process, or I don't want to go through the stress, or what if this, what if that, right? And that's what I'm teaching. I'm teaching you because another class I'm gonna do is the ugly side of real estate, right? I'm gonna show the ugly side so you can at least see, okay, it's not that scary. Right? Remember when you was a kid, you had to go, one of your big brothers or whatever, they was the ones that, come on, we going on the monster ride. You're like, no, they're like, come on, we going, right? And then when the child gets there, what happens? It's like, come on, did the monsters get you? Is the monsters real? And you be like, no. And it's like that fear just disappears. It's the same thing with everything in life, brothers and sisters. I'm telling you that right now. Right? So I'm still taking questions. I don't see none right now. Well, matter of fact, let me see. It says in the chat, when acquiring properties, it's important. Oh, that's not a question, it's a statement. It says when acquiring property, it's important to put them in a trust for protection. That's right. In my first two videos specifically, right, I actually went over that. What you want to put your properties under, right, is a title holding trust. A title holding trust, you take it off your name and you put it under the trust. So now the property is off your name, and also it protects you from liabilities of people want to sue you and things of that nature. So, yeah, definitely transfer it to a trust. It's like an LLC. An LLC is a separate entity, but you also to be even safer, right? If you want people to inherit that, whoever you want to inherit that, your son, your daughter, whatever the case may be, you put that LLC into a trust itself as well. Because you want to make sure if something happens to you, those assets is protected and it's not under a will where you have to go through probate, or it's not under nothing at all where they could just take it without a probate. You see what I'm saying? So you want to be, and that's a good lesson in itself. I'll be going into that, you know what I'm saying? Because there's different types of trust. A lot of y'all might look up a trust and say, damn, there's different types. And that's why I said specifically when you're investing, it's a title holding trust, but you have what's an irrevocable trust. Right? People that you put on the list that inherits your properties and things of that nature, and you can't change it for life. And you got revocable trust, which you can change it, anytime at any point. Right? And some of them, some of them are more secure than others. But that's a whole lesson in itself, right? So these are things you want to know, brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? And that's why I always stress, if you have any questions, I need y'all to ask them, right? Me, when I was in high school and all that, I was one of those kids. I was always raising my hand to the point where the teacher was like, yo, man, let's pick somebody else. You're always raising your hand. Right? Especially when it came to social studies, reading, English. So, like when it came to certain classes, I was always raising my hand. Right? To answer the question. People look at me like, yo, this dude from the hood, and he over here answering questions in the class. Like, oh, that's crazy. I don't, like, you know what I mean? It's like, a lot of times we get looked down upon like we ain't supposed to have the answers, right? Even the teachers, right? At that time, what she was voting for, what she voted for who was it? It was a teacher. She was voting for either Hillary, right? I don't know. It was a while back. She was voting for a president. I forgot which one it was, but it was definitely, the opposite, race. And she expressed it like, yeah, because he's white. Right? Or she's white, one of them, right? But even like I would see how she would look at me like, damn, you always raising your hand, you got the answer, everything. Like, wow, I can't believe that. Like, but if it was a white student, oh yeah, you know what I mean? Anyway, right? We'll get into that another time, whatever. But yes, right? You want to ask questions, you want to always have the answers to the things you need the answers to, right? And you don't want to be blind in the dark. You don't want to go in there not knowing what you're doing. Right? That's the worst thing you could do. Let me see. Right, that's a good point right there. It's Louis Yashai said, not sure if it was mentioned, but FHA might require at least 3 months of mortgage payments saved in the account before closing. Right. So then, and that's why you would have to ask, your FHA program directly. Right. Some programs may require, that you have a certain amount. Some programs are more flexible. Right. Especially with multifamily, it's more flexible with multifamily because the lenders see that the property is paying for itself. So it's not like a single family house where they look at it and say, okay, we need to make sure you're responsible enough with credit and payments on time to be able to pay for this single family that's not generating no income. So with multifamily, it's a little more flexible. And that's why it's important to reach out to your lenders directly. You see what they offer directly and what you qualify for. Right. So I'm gonna touch on that in the future as well, too, because I don't want to leave anything unturned. So that's definitely something people might have a question about, and everything y'all saying as well. I jotted down so I can make a slide on it. Right. I always like making slides on it so y'all can see the information for yourselves. Y'all can see it. Y'all can pause it. Y'all can read it yourselves. I'm not just talking and you listening. You're like, oh, damn, what he said. So that's why I'm always doing the slides. So yes, that's another thing to touch on. Right. Good topic right there. Right, that's another thing. Different states work differently with the programs, so other programs might have certain requirements that others don't. And nowadays, like there was this report that it was a lender. I forgot what state. I could bring that out next week because I'm gonna start bringing out reports of these things, right? So y'all can see it for yourselves. But a person got accepted with 580 credit score, not really no money in the bank like that, right? I read that story and it actually saved it because that's the kind of information I want people to know. Right. There's always some kind of information out there that you might think is going to make it impossible for you to do, but there's always ways around it. Right. That's the important part. So, yes, I'll be going over that as well in the near future. On YouTube, Los Angeles, Houston, I forget the fifth city. You have to make under 130, right? I believe, yep, 100 under 130,000. You have to make in certain states. So basically, you can't make, as much. I mean, listen, most of us ain't making 130K a year. Let's keep it a buck. Most of us ain't making 130K a year. You know what I'm saying? So as far as I'm concerned, people that I'm trying to reach will qualify for this because that's who I'm trying to reach. I'm trying to reach our people specifically, right? And our people is in the condition where they don't have this information and they don't have that 130K a year. So that's my specific target, right? Yeah, but certain states, like I said, and as others are mentioning, have different rules and regulations. It's always important to inform yourselves, and that's why questions are important because if you don't have the biggest person that is not too wise in the room are the ones that don't have questions, right? And I'm talking about any room. I'm talking about you could be anything. You could be at your job if you know what your job description is, but don't know how to do it. I mean, it's of no use. You see what I'm saying? So it's always better to ask questions than to be floating in the air, just trying to figure things out on the fly, right? When I say on the fly, I'm talking about you could get the information, but you choose not to, right? So let me see. What about title lock? Rob, I'm not sure if you're talking about the title situation I just mentioned. Putting your property under the title. But I even go, like I said, I go deeper into that as well. I believe in the second video more, but I also touching on the first video. So if you got those, just go back and watch it. It'll give you all the information you need about the title. Because I'm going to go over a PowerPoint presentation specifically on the titles. Right. So another thing, just throw out there too, when you're looking for mortgage rates, you want to make sure it's a locked rate, right? You don't want it to be a fluctuable rate where your mortgage rate can go up and down at any time. You want it to be a rate that's good and it's locked. That means it cannot change. It cannot go up and down, and it's not going to fluctuate. That's important too when you're looking for mortgage rates, because let's say you're paying a mortgage of $1,000, then next month you're paying a mortgage of $1,500. You're like, how the hell that happened? That's because you don't have a fixed rate that's locked. Make sure you have a fixed rate that's locked, which, I'm gonna mark that down too, so you brothers and sisters could understand when I bring it out. Fixed rate. All right. Yeah, that's important as well. So hey Mike, you could unmute and maybe just bring out the information so people can hear it verbally. Maybe they'll understand a little better. But yeah, bring it out, King. If you need, we got something.
Yeah, I just always try to drive this home because I see a lot of people get stuck trying to find out, like, as far as the LLC and then the S corp and the trust. Like, those things come in stages, and the biggest way to look at it, like I always the way I've been taught and the way that I have been successful at it is to look at business, like just going into business. Like, say, just today, if you're planning on doing any type of business, real estate, whatever it is, you're going to look at it in 4 phases. So it's going to be the build out. That's your planning. You're starting to understand numbers and all of that stuff. Like, what it really looks like to be in business. Like, just getting your basic education. Then profit. That's going to be your second stage. Then tax benefit. Then last is going to be legacy. So with the build out, you can do that in your name. You can do that on your cell phone while you're at work. Like, you can do that anywhere. Once you get into the part of actually putting that build out to work and start bringing in profits, that's when you can get your LLC. Now you want to start logging your profits. You want that LLC. Then that whole part takes time to master your business. Once you get into mastering your business and you say, okay, I've made it through the tough time and I'm bringing in profits. If you exceed like 10K a month, then you're going to want an S corp. S corp is going to run your LLC. It's going to be like the parent to your LLC. Your S corp won't be in the same state that you're in. So that S corp will run your LLC. That would cover your when I say like your tax benefit. Now, lastly is always going to be your trust, because your trust is for legacy, is the delegate payment and oversight on everything. This falls under that umbrella. So there's a million different trusts you can have. Like, for me personally, I use a spendthrift trust, which just pays me a paycheck. That's like one of the new most popular trust that people use now, like especially like basketball players and people who come into money like fast. Like, a lot of them use spendthrift trust right now. But that's when you want to get into your trust, is when you start looking at, okay, I've amassed a wealth for myself, and it's moving, it's creating, it has its own heartbeat. It the business is working. You have your supply chain, your customer, your demographics. Everything is moving. All you need to do is hand down information to keep this going. That's when you're going to have your trust, because that trust is going to hold everything. It's going to hold your secret recipe. It's going to hold, hey, do this, and this will keep on creating for itself. That's what the trust does. The S corp will guarantee that nobody is doing anything wrong underneath that, which would be the LLC. And then the LLC is the day-to-day. That's the manager of everything. The LLC is like the person who you have working in your store while you're not there. And then you are the private entity. So that's the way I always try to get people to understand how the business side of it works. Like, it's always going to be looked at in those 4 standards, like build out, profit, tax benefit, and legacy. So if you plan it that way, like, I think anybody, if you plan for legacy, then you get your first 3 steps right because you're planning for legacy. Don't plan for profit. Don't plan for tax benefit. Those things need to be an occurrence. Like, you want to get to the point where you need tax benefit. So that's an occurrence. Plan for legacy, and you'll do everything else right, because you don't want to plan for build out. Build out is something you have to do. Profit is something you have to get to. Tax benefit is something you have to need. But legacy, that's something you want. So, I hope that's beneficial to somebody, or anybody who's listening. But just always look at it. Don't jump into trust too fast. Don't try to jump into S corp too fast. Cause I've seen people who have S corps and don't have the LLC that's making $2,000 a month. Like, so you'll be spending more money for lawyers and stuff than you're actually making. So, I hope that's beneficial to somebody. Thanks.
Yeah, well spoken, King. Well spoken. We definitely need that information. That's something that, because, me going into also teaching in the near future about commercial properties, you definitely know about S corps. You definitely know about LLCs, especially when you want to move in the commercial side. So, yeah, I think that'll be one of my actual PowerPoints and classes as well. Mike, I don't know if you want to hit me in the chat, in the back chat, private chat. Maybe we could kind of exchange information and make a class on that, because I think people need to be informed on the LLCs as well. Me personally, like I mentioned earlier, everybody's expert in their own field. Like me personally, I know the basics about LLCs and S corps. I just don't know the deeper, detailed information and what they would say the shortcuts or the benefits, so to say, right? So yeah, maybe we could link up. Can hit me in the back if you can.
Most definitely, I'll shoot you my information, man. Like, that's nothing, man. This is the part of nation building I love. I can talk about this stuff every day, all day. Like, I love this stuff, Like, we most definitely need, like, to be speaking, and like the other classes, the debates and the edification. That's the blood. That's that's our intake. That's our nutrients. But this part right here, like, this is nation building, like. So I'm with that. Most definitely, I'll shoot you my information, bro.
No doubt. That sounds good, King. Appreciate it. Yeah. Like the brother said, man, this is information we all need to know. This is nation building, right? We always talking about nation building. We always talking about, we need to build a nation, this and that. And I agree, we have to. You just have to add all the other elements to it, right? I got a whole class on economics in the Bible, right? And of course, don't take it out of context. It's not about money. It's not about that. It's about us being able to leave something for our families. It's us being able to take care and support our families while we're here, right? Everybody needs some kind of income to support themselves, right? We can't be blind to that fact. So this information is definitely vital to those who want to pursue that in terms of legacy, in terms of passing something down to their kids, where they have, listen, the scripture says what? A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So we want to have the knowledge. We want to be able to pass it down, and we want to be able to, out of our own hearts, give this information freely, right? Like when I come up here, I don't really charge for like general classes or information. Right. In the near future, I might just, charge a little bit for my time because I'm gonna be occupied here and there. Right. For certain things. But it ain't even like a price. It's going to be like, oh, my God, I can't do it. But again, it's about investing in yourself. It's about getting this knowledge and really digging into it. That's what it's about. Right. So let me see on YouTube. Somebody said, yep, I'm going to go over that. Karab, you could check out my first 2 classes and it'll go over that as well. Right. The next one, when the interest rate goes down again, will you benefit if your mortgage rate is locked? Yeah, you can always refinance, cash out, or just refinance, period, right? One of the things you want to look at is the prepayment penalties. Make sure there's no prepayment penalties attached to it or any of that kind of stuff, right? If you're planning to refinance. But you can always refinance in the future with a rate that's not locked. That's something that you can't really, unless you get out of it, you can't really change because it's going to be, fluctuating up and down, what I'm saying, as time goes on. So, so that's what I would say. I would say just get a rate locked. And if anything, you can always find a way to refinance in the future if the rates is going down. Right. So That would be me. Right now, man, the rates is see now, and that's the thing with the numbers. That's why the numbers is important. Even though the rates are up right now, you still got to make sure what the property is generating. Because even though, let's say you still get a mortgage rate that the property is still able to afford and pay for itself and still leave it with a good profit, then that's what matters, right? A lot of times we let the rate scare us. I'm not saying you specifically, the one the person on YouTube, whatever. I'm saying in general, people, because I get a lot of people that come to me, right? Listen, the mortgage rates is up. I don't think we should buy right now. And they never buying, right? But they just saying the interest rate is up, so I don't want to buy. That's really an excuse, because what happens is if the property is paying for itself, it's still generating income, and with the current mortgage rate, you're still able to pay off that mortgage each month and still have a profit. That's what matters, right? You can always refinance in the future to get a better rate. But if we're seeing the rates going up now, the rates might go up in the next 3-4 months. So now, a lot of people, they wait till the rate is like 15%, right? To then say, damn, I should have got it at 7. So it's never really a time to say, oh, it's not time to buy, unless you're doing something different, right? If you're buying and flipping, then I mentioned earlier, the market crash or the value of the property is going down, that's going to affect you, because you're buying to sell and you're trying to make a profit. But if the value goes down, then that means your profit goes down. That's different. Passive income, you for long term buying and holding, you're buying the property to buy long term anyway, right? So yeah, listen, it's right now the market for the buyer side is the best time to buy. Why? Because if the value of the properties got lower on the residential side, right? 4 units, well, particularly 4 units, what I'm teaching, right? If the property goes down, that means you're buying it for a cheaper price, and in the future, the property value may just go up and exceed the value that it goes up to, right, in time. So don't ever let the mortgage rate scare you, right? And always let the numbers talk. So I just want to bring that out, because I do get a lot of people that say the mortgage rate is up, I don't want to buy, but they never plan to buy though, right? So yeah, just to answer your question, yeah, you can always refinance in the future. They give you, if it's a better mortgage rate, right? So yeah, we heading to 145. So I got maybe 2 or 3 more minutes. Let me see. Let me check the chat. On Clubhouse it says, is FHA a one-time program? A lot, and that's a good question. A lot of FHA programs, they allow you to use them more than once, right? They allow you to use them more than once, and a lot of them after a year, you're still considered a first-time home buyer, right? After living there, or on paper living there for a year. Because with a multifamily, what happens is that you would have to, on paper, live in 1 unit and rent out the rest for at least a year before you can move out and get a new property and keep the first property, but then use the same program to get another multifamily, right? So you can use it more than once with certain programs. And that's the beautiful thing about it. Imagine, you're getting a property every year, 4 units, right? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. In 5 years, you'll have 20 units with no money out your pocket, right? That's beautiful right there to me. So yeah, you can reuse it. Just ask the lenders what's the requirement. When you go back to my first videos, it's in the chat. You go back to my first and second videos, I'll actually explain, right, what to ask them for and what specific information to get from the lenders to see if you're flexible to refinance, to make sure there's no prepayment penalties, to make sure that everything with the loan, according to what you want to do, is fixed that way. Right. And that's the important part on our side, to investigate what kind of contract we're getting into. That's why you would also have a real estate lawyer, which I went into the first video as well. Part of your team is your lawyer, your real estate lawyer. Now, what you want to do is bring him the contract, make sure it's according to what you lined up, and make sure it's exactly what you came in to do and what you went in for. So that's the important part about the team building, right? The team building, you got to build your network and your team, and the real estate lawyer is part of that team. Right. So, all right. So, I mean, if we don't have any more questions, I'll give it a minute. Right. I'll speak for a minute. And if anybody has more questions, you can raise your hand on Clubhouse, on the comment board. You can ask it. And on YouTube, you can also ask it. Yeah. So, as I'm concluding this class, I hope everybody got edified. Again, if you have questions, you can always watch this video again. If you have questions, mark them down. I will normally be doing these type of classes on Sundays, 12 p.m. Right before I do the biblical classes at 3 p.m. So I'll be doing this at 12 p.m. mostly every Sunday. You can catch me on Clubhouse, on the YouTube, right? Anytime I'm doing these classes. So whenever you have questions, I can give them to you and you can be edified on whatever you may have an issue with or interest in, whatever, right? So let's see. All right, I guess there's no more questions for now. With that, I'll say peace and safety and blessings to the family on YouTube, to the family on Clubhouse. Mike Mills, I appreciate you coming up and adding to the build. You know, and with that, I'm gonna say again, peace and safety to everybody. Next week, right? Next week we'll be going into other topics, you know, dealing with hard money lenders, you know, a little fix and flip and a little wholesaling, right? Somewhere around there. So we'll be doing to that. And then I'm gonna link up with Mike Mills, and me and him will be going over LLCs. It seems like he's well informed in that area, so he'll be doing, you know, some breakdowns on that as well. I'm gonna link up with him, see what's good. Other than that, peace and blessings, everybody. All right, shalom.